Our webinar looks like it's now live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight on our first iRise and Shine Wellness Collective seminar or webinar series. Sorry. I'm very excited to introduce our guests today, Jake and Suzanne, who will talk to us about ditching your diet, evidence-based fitness and nutrition for sustainable weight loss. Suzanne, Jake, welcome.
Thank you for having us. I'm just going to share my screen here and we will get started. Awesome. So as mentioned, I am Jake, obviously, and this is Dr. Suzanne Rutherford, and we're going to be speaking today about ditching your diet and evidence-based fitness and nutrition for sustainable fat loss. So we're very excited to be here. And just a quick breakdown of goals for the webinar. So our goals for the webinar are first and foremost with anybody that we work with. Education is one of the key features of what we do, and we want clients that we work with to ultimately walk away from our programs, our teachings, our webinars with a really good baseline of what to do and where to go and how to take action so ultimately they can achieve results. And with that education, we hope that it'll be very inspiring for you to know exactly those step-by-step protocols that you'll take to achieve some amazing things. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Suzanne.
Yes, and we're especially excited to provide this information to all of you tonight as breast cancer fighters and warriors, as really weight management really does play a key role in your post-treatment journey. And really, regardless of where your weight or your BMI was when you started at the time of your diagnosis, we know the science actually does show concretely that avoiding weight gain during and after your treatment will actually decrease the risk of disease recurrence and increase survival rates. So this is a really pertinent conversation, and we're so excited to be able to give you the information. Unfortunately, many women with breast cancer do gain, on average between 2.5 to 5 kilograms during their treatment. And often for many women, it can be much more than that. And this is for a variety of reasons, most of which you probably don't need me to tell you, but it can come from just simply stress eating, from the actual stress of the diagnosis and the treatment and everything that goes along with it. It can be from decreased physical activity, from your general fatigue, and from the treatment related side effects that can come. Not to mention all of the different treatments and medications that can also lead to weight gain, things like dexamethasone and things like that can slow down your metabolism. So, there's a lot of things that make weight gain very, very easily done with the breast cancer treatment and going through that journey. But it's really, really important that we manage, that we give you the information and that you're able to best manage your weight. And so that's why today we really want to give you the information and try to make it as simple as possible. There's a lot of terrible, terrible information out there in the market. And, all people, women especially, are confused at what is the right way to lose weight. What is the right solution? And really what we want to do today is give you the information you need going forward. And really, I'm excited for you to learn that it's actually not that hard. It's actually very simple. It doesn't require restrictive, hard, diets that has you giving up the life that you love and all the things that you love. It doesn't require any of that. It's possible to lose the weight and keep the weight off in a sustainable way. And that's the information we're really excited to share with you today. So before we get started, we did want to take a few minutes just to introduce ourselves a little bit and explain how Jake and I ended up as a team. So as Jake mentioned, my name is Suzanne Rutherford. I'm a 44-year-old married mother of 2 beautiful children. I have a daughter, Sophia, who's 16, and a son, Finn, who is 14. I'm a family doctor in a small town just outside of Ottawa, where I also practice hospice and palliative medicine as well. So basically, I care for patients right from the time they're born, from the very beginning of their life, right until the end of their life. And I'm with them through every milestone, achievement, and obstacle along the way. And honestly, it's what I love most about my job. My interest in actual fitness and nutrition started in my undergraduate when I majored in nutritional sciences in human biology before I went to medical school. And now a large part of my professional practice is actually devoted to helping women, feel confident again by regaining their health, regaining control over their body, and, just helping to, again, like I said before, debunk all of the myths and bad information that there is out there and, help them regain control of their life again. So why do I love this so much, or why am I passionate about it? It's because, to be honest, I was one of those women. There was a period of time in my life when I really started to feel like a stranger in my own body. The throes of medical school and a busy residency program combined with 2 pregnancies and motherhood left me feeling overweight, lacking energy and self-esteem. And so I knew that I had to start making myself a priority again. I needed to regain control of my nutrition and find a fitness program that would fit into my really busy, chaotic life. And that's when I met Jake.
And I am Jake, and I got my introduction into fitness when I was about 13 years old, and I was playing hockey, which was my extreme passion at the time. And I was cut from my hockey team because they said, "You're not big enough, you're not strong enough." So my dad said, "Well, we can't make you any bigger, but we can certainly make you stronger." And that's when I started my journey into working out and self-development, which ultimately led to passion for fitness as well. And so I combined the two and said, well, if I can't make the NHL as a hockey player, I want to make it as a trainer. And so that was when I got my first job as a personal trainer at 16 years old and coaching group fitness classes and things like that. With university, I had to make a decision, okay, what do I want to study? So I went to the University of Waterloo for kinesiology and have since done advanced certifications in nutrition, joint mobility, strength and conditioning, boxing, you name it. From there, my passion for training hockey players shifted a little bit as they would go back to their hockey teams and I would be continue working. And I would be doing group fitness classes, personal training, and from there, online fitness coaching was a thing. And so with that, I started developing my online training business and was working with clients one-on-one at the time, Suzanne being one of them. And it was 3 years ago to this day, she said, "Jake, I love this online training thing. It works so well for me. It combines fitness, nutrition, and also accountability. I think this would be a really good tool for a lot of my physician colleagues as well. I'm part of a Facebook group. What do you think about putting it out there, a 12-week fitness challenge?" I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea." So we started 3 years ago with 35 Canadian women physicians all across the country. And the group has since exploded, really. It's the only word for it. We just started our 12th 12-week round. And we now have 500 Canadian women physicians across the country. And with that, we've also started subsequent groups. So we have another group, the Moms First Movement. We're running a pilot project, the iRise and Shine, and we do corporate fitness challenges as well. So with that, Suzanne and I have been working together. We've achieved some great success. We've learned a ton along the way, and we're really based on what does the science say, what does the evidence say, and how to help people working with us come up with a unique solution that fits not only their lifestyle, but their goals as well. So the first thing we're going to get started here with today is the 3 components of successful fat loss. And I say successful fat loss because losing weight is one thing, but being able to sustain your weight loss is ultimately what makes it successful. And this process is often overcomplicated by mass marketed products that promise a quick fix solution, which we're going to explain to you very shortly why this is never a good idea. The key to successful fat loss is finding a nutrition approach that is sustainable, that will allow you to achieve your goals, to work out regularly to complement that nutrition and help you to build strength along with a host of other things, and also to adopting a long-term mindset so that the process becomes a lifestyle. So first and foremost, when it comes to nutrition, there are a few key terms we're going to break down. The first one, or that we're going to talk about often, so I want to break them down. And the first one is calories. You probably hear the word calories very often. And what is a calorie? A calorie is simply a way that we measure energy that the body consumes and also uses. And where do we get our calories from? These are called macronutrients. So there's three main macronutrients. The first one being protein, which we call the muscle macro. It's found in high quantities in things like meat sources, but also to dairy and some other foods. And protein, 1 gram of protein equates to 4 calories. The other often buzzword you hear in the diet industry is carbs or carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are found in things like beans, legumes, fruits, lentils. And with carbohydrates, same as protein, yields 4 calories per gram. And then from there, the third major macronutrient is fat. And with fat, you have multiple different types of fat. But the main thing to note is that fat yields 9 calories per gram. And then the other thing on top of that is you have your proteins, carbs, and fats, but we can't also not talk about alcohol, because unfortunately, alcohol is not calorie free, and alcohol yields 7 calories per gram. And so with that, our combination of proteins, carbs, fats, alcohol will combine to make up our total caloric intake.
So really, despite what you will read on the internet or see splashed across social media over and over and over again, there really is only one way to lose weight, and that is by achieving a caloric deficit over a length of time. Weight loss is the simple result of you consuming less calories than you burn, or calories in being less than your calories out. It always comes down to the simple equation without exception. If you eat less calories than you burn, you will lose weight. End of story. It's as non-negotiable as the fact that the earth is round and not flat. There is absolutely no other way to lose weight. No magic diet, no magic pills, no magic formula that will lead to weight loss unless they involve a caloric deficit. So that's why it's really important for each and every one of us to understand the concept of our own caloric budget. So I like to think of fat like financial debt. If you go shopping without any idea of how much is in your bank account or the price of the items that you're purchasing, you will easily accumulate debt in the form of credit cards. Likewise, if you eat without having any idea of how many calories you burn in a day or your daily caloric budget, and no understanding of how many calories are in the food that you eat, you will easily accumulate fat. So what makes up each of our daily caloric budgets? Well, this is known as our total daily energy expenditure. And it's made up of 4 main components. The first one being your basal metabolic rate. So this is the energy that we burn to perform the functions necessary to life while at rest. So these are the calories that we burn by our heart pumping, our lungs breathing, our intestines digesting. And it comprises a total of 70% of your total daily energy expenditure or your total daily caloric budget. Next is your NEAT. So this is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is the amount of energy you burn from activity outside of formal exercise. So for instance, the calories we burn while we're blow drying our hair, doing the laundry, walking from the car into the office, and things like that. And it comprises a total of about 15% of our total daily energy expenditure. And NEAT, or the non-exercise activity thermogenesis, is something that we're seeing really has been taking a large hit since COVID hit. And obviously we're all working from home and being less mobile in our everyday life. Next is the thermic effect of food. So this is the actual calories we burn simply by digesting the food that we eat. And it comprises approximately 10% of your daily caloric burn. And just out of interest sake, when we're talking about protein later on, protein out of all the macronutrients, so compared to fat and carbohydrates, actually requires the most energy to burn. So you burn more calories eating protein than you do any of the other macronutrients. And then lastly, we have the exercise activity thermogenesis. So these are the calories that we actually burn during our workouts, our dedicated workout time. And for the average person who works out, 30 minutes to an hour a day, it really only comprises about 5%, not a lot of our daily caloric burn. Obviously, if you're a professional athlete training 8 hours a day, this is going to be a significantly larger proportion of our daily energy expenditure. But for the sake of the average person who's doing, 1 workout a day, it's about 5%. So understanding what our daily caloric budget is and the amount of calories that we consume overall in a day really is the key to weight loss success. The only way out of debt is to save money. Likewise, the only way to lose fat is to save calories.
And so with that, another important number to take into account is 3,500. And 3,500 is the estimated number of calories in a pound of body weight. So if we take that number 3,500 and we divide it by 7, that equals 500 calories. So by this math, in order to lose a pound of body weight per week or per 7 days, it would take you a 500 calorie deficit. So you would have to burn 500 calories more than you consume. One of my favorite quotes is from Dr. Lane Norton, who is a PhD in nutrition. And his quote is, the slower you lose weight, the more likely you keep it off. And there's lots of evidence to back that up. So with that, what we often get clients to start with is a 250 calorie deficit. And so with that, 250 calories times 7 would equal half of that 3,500 number. So you would lose half a pound of body weight per week. And with that, I also too sometimes get clients who will say, well, that's not quick enough. I want to lose it faster. But if you times that half a pound a week by a year, that's 26 pounds in a year. Times that by 2 years, that's 52 pounds. And by those numbers, those are life-changing numbers. And again, the most important thing is that it's sustainable and that you're able to keep the weight off. So next thing we're going to talk about, which Suzanne alluded a little bit to, is the importance of protein. And protein is important for a number of reasons. First and foremost, muscle retention, which is a key factor. When you are losing weight, you're often losing fat and muscle at the same time. But the more muscle we can keep, the better our overall health is going to be, and perhaps the better our physique will be. The other thing is satiation. So it is harder to break down protein, and with that, it takes longer. And so you tend to stay more full for longer when you eat higher protein, which will ultimately have you consuming less. And the thermic effect of feeding, which Suzanne mentioned, where with that breakdown, because it takes longer, because it is harder, you'll burn more calories in the process of breaking down protein. And then again, as I mentioned, you'll retain more muscle mass, and with more muscle mass, you'll have a higher basal metabolic rate. And so all of these things on their own might not make a huge difference, but when you combine all of these things, they can make a very significant difference in your weight loss journey. And so with that, we're also too going to talk about different diet types and perhaps which diet is best and where to go from there. So there are literally hundreds of thousands of different diets out there. And with the different diets, it's easy to get confused by some of the mixed messaging and the promises that each one comes with. And I'm often amazed, but never surprised, when I'm assessing clients and I ask them, okay, have you tried anything in the past? And typically there's a bunch of diets that they've tried with very conflicting messaging. And so with that, one of the things that we want to talk about is those different diet types and perhaps why one diet is not any better than the next.
So this is probably my favorite slide of the entire presentation because it is by far the most important take-home point of the entire webinar, as it addresses all of the misleading information that we are absolutely flooded with by the dishonest mass marketing of the fitness and nutrition industry. I mean, just open up your Instagram, your Google search page, and you're just flooded with information of why, you know, what diet is the best, and this is the only way to lose weight, and so on and so on. And despite what the media, the fitness influencers, or even your friends and family tell you, studies concretely show that as long as the total calories and protein intake are equal, there is actually no single best diet for weight loss. So there is no single diet that will be better than the next as long as the calorie content and the protein content are equal. So in 2017, the International Society of Sports Nutrition completed a critical analysis of all the literature regarding the effects of different types of diets on body composition. And they found that just like I said, there's not one diet type that is superior to the next when the total calories and the amount of protein are the same. And there was actually a more recent systematic review done just in the British Medical Journal, and it was just of April of 2020, so this past year, coming up on a year now. And what they did is they compiled all of the data from 121 different randomized trials. So these are the best type of evidence-based trials there are. And they compared 14 popular diet types, including many of the ones that we had listed before. And they likewise showed that there was no single one diet that had an advantage to weight loss or an advantage, interestingly enough, to cardiovascular health, as long as the calories and the protein were equal. So what does this look like in real life? We like to use Emily here as an example. So Emily, we know, requires 1,500 calories a day to be in a calorie deficit. In order for Emily to lose weight, she needs to eat 1,500 calories a day. And we know that 500 grams of this ideally will come from protein so that Emily is able to maintain her muscle mass and lose her fat. So we tell Emily, you've got 1,500 calories to eat in a day. 500 of those have to come from protein. The other 1,000, do with what you like. And Emily may choose to eat keto, where pretty much they all come from fat and very little to none from carbs. She may try a low carb, high fat. She may try intermittent fasting, where she takes all of those calories and eats them within a narrow window. Or maybe she'll even try a high carb, low fat. Regardless of what Emily chooses, she will lose the same amount of weight in the end. It really does not matter. So what does that mean for all of us? It means that we can each design our own diet to meet our individual preferences and lifestyles so that we are able to sustain them long term. If you love breakfast, eat breakfast. If life is crazy and hectic in the morning and eating later in the day or intermittent fasting works better for you, go for it. If you love carbs and feel miserable without them, eat the carbs. If carbs make you feel bloated and unwell and they just don't agree with you, then don't eat the carbs. As long as you are in a caloric deficit and eating a sufficient amount of protein, you will lose fat. So why is this information not more widely circulated in the media? Well, it's not because it's new information, or it's not because the science doesn't back it up. It's simply because this information can't be packaged as a magic formula to sell. It means that every author or trainer who is trying to sell you their perfect solution to weight loss really has nothing to sell at all. So you'll hear Jake and I talk, often about diet sustainability. And this is what I was saying before. If you're not enjoying your life when you're losing the weight, then that diet is not for you. And the reason why diet sustainability is so important, it's because if we can't sustain the lifestyle long-term, then we won't be able to keep the weight off. Diets that involve severe deprivation or deviation outside of our normal life inevitably will lead to weight regain once you stop following them. It's something we call, the yo-yo cycle of weight gain or weight loss and weight regain, and something we refer to as weight cycling. And claims have actually been made that weight cycling, so losing the weight then putting it back on again, is actually more detrimental to your health than simply remaining overweight in the first place or all along. Evidence has shown that the weight loss regain cycle actually can increase your risk of heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, and metabolic syndrome. So why is the weight cycling phenomenon so common? Why do we see this all the time? It's probably happened to many of us. Why are we constantly losing the weight, gaining it back, losing the weight, gaining it back? Well, despite the fact that, as human beings, we've evolved in so many ways, our genetics actually still stand strong from our caveman days when weight loss is actually seen as a vulnerability. The entire time we're losing weight, our body is actually designing a really complex defense mechanism so that when our diet ends and we go back to eating the way we were before or in a caloric surplus, it's ready to gain the fat back and prevent you from losing it once again. And this, image really documents this well. This is actually an image taken from a study done by Bronwell and his team. And it really shows well the effects of the weight loss and regain cycle on the body. So as you can see here, the rat is initially put on a diet and loses the weight. And once the rat is then taken off the diet and put back into a caloric surplus, the diet ends and the rat goes back to eating as it was before. the rat actually gains its weight twice as fast as he lost it. And then the next time they put the weight, the rats back in the caloric deficit, so back on the diet, they actually lost the weight only half as fast as they did the original time. Then again, when the rat came off the diet and they were put back in a caloric surplus, they actually gained the weight twice as fast as before. And as you can see, each time it was harder for the rats to lose the weight and easier for them to regain it. Now, I know this all sounds very disheartening. It almost makes you wonder, oh my goodness, why even bother trying to lose the weight? Because my body's totally setting me up to regain it. Well, I can assure you, and Jade can assure you, that our bodies are very, very capable of losing the weight and keeping it off. But this, in and of itself, this information explains why the quick fixes, the quick fix diets just need to end. We can no longer be putting ourselves on diets that we cannot sustain long-term. There can no longer be a beginning, a start to your diet, and an end. What we need to do is find a lifestyle that allows you to enjoy your life, live your life while you're in the caloric deficit, while you're losing the weight, so that when you're done and you've reached your goals, you can continue to live in a similar way and not end the diet and go back. We've got to get rid of the quick fixes. We've got to find a diet that allows you to enjoy your life while you're losing the weight. And if you are trying to lose weight and not enjoying your life, I'm telling you, it is not the right diet for you. And we need to stop and try something new.
And so, as you could tell, Suzanne is very passionate about this topic. With that, we have the nutrition pyramid for fat loss. And what it comes down to is the most important thing is that bottom of the pyramid, which is sustainability. From there, caloric deficit is the next thing you want to focus on. So finding a sustainable caloric deficit. Protein is number 3. And after that comes all of that other stuff. And I'm often asked questions from clients like, how many meals should I be eating per day? What's the best breakfast to have? What should I be having pre-workout, post-workout? What supplements should I take? And in the grand scheme of fat loss, those things are far, far less important than sustainability, caloric deficit, and protein. And it's funny because these mass marketed fitness products often prey on these tiny little things that they get you to focus on that really do not make a difference at the end of the day. And again, what we want to do for you in this webinar is clear some of that confusion and have you start from the bottom of the pyramid with that sustainability, and then from there work your way up to caloric deficit, protein intake, and perhaps focus on all of that other stuff afterwards. So with that, the nutrition recipe for fat loss or sustainable weight loss is, okay, you're probably wondering, well, how many calories should I be eating? There are a host of different variety, so many different calorie equations to determine, okay, what's the right number for you to lose weight. But with that, we like to keep things simple because ultimately no one number is perfect or no one calculation is perfect for individuals. So what we get clients to do is start with, okay, what is your goal body weight times that by 12? That's the number of calories we want you consuming per day to start with. The second thing we get clients to do is for protein intake, same thing. Goal body weight times that by 1. That is the amount of grams of protein we want you to try to be consuming per day. And with sustainability, we recommend something called flexible dieting. So with flexible dieting, I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but Suzanne's going to talk about how to come up with a sustainable diet first.
So again, sustainability, we start to sound like a broken record. The key part to your diet, you need to find something that you can keep going long-term on. And the POSE mnemonic is a mnemonic we use to help describe, different features to help you find out what's sustainable. So first being your preferences. Obviously, your diet needs to be filled with foods that you enjoy and that you love. There's nothing that I despise more than seeing, patients or clients come into my office who have been put on a strict meal plan full of foods like egg whites and cans of tuna and things that they don't even like. And they're just sitting there trying to, gulp it down because they think that's the only way they're going to lose weight. Your diet, food is meant to be enjoyed. Food is meant as a form of celebration. It is meant to bring us pleasure. And it shouldn't change just because you're trying to lose weight. So make sure that as you work out what you eat to fit your caloric budget, make sure it's full of foods that you really do love. Next is organization. So obviously, it's important to plan to some extent, obviously will help. So organization looks different for different people. Some people love the meal prep where they spend, an afternoon a day and they make several meals up for the week, and then they plan those meals and they're all prepared and ready to go. Other people like myself, I'm less about the meal prep and more about the meal planning. I have certain recipes that are my go-tos. I know they can be made quickly and easy, that they taste delicious, and they're, full of protein and very calorie wise. Whatever it is looks like for you, what I would say is Jake and I both encourage is that you try different things and see what works for you. Maybe it's meal planning where you plan out your recipes for the week. Maybe it's actually meal prepping where you cook or prepare those for the week. However it looks, try different things to see what fits into your lifestyle. Next is your support systems. Obviously, you will have more success in any goal that you're attempting to achieve if you include people around you, in your system and use them as support. And definitely, this is what we love most about our fitness challenges, because we bring a group of people together and who have common interests and common environments, whether it be because of work. In the case of the iRise pilot group, you've all come together with your experience with breast cancer, and you use each other for your support. So you share ideas, you share challenges, you share successes. And really, we found that any sort of weight loss program really is best, and it's easier to sustain a diet if you have your support people on board. Likewise, I never ever, for those of you that are moms out there, nothing drives me crazier again than when I see mom eating one meal and she prepares a different meal for her family. I mean, the whole family should be eating together. You don't have time for that. So bring your whole support system in and find a diet that works for everyone. Lastly is your environment, obviously setting yourself up again for success. If there's obvious things that you just have difficulty saying no to and are going to blow your calorie budget out of the water, let's say gummy bears are your thing, you have a bag of gummy bears in the house and you're going to plow right through that bag of gummy bears, well then obviously it makes life easier if you just don't have those gummy bears around, and setting up your environment for success. So really, those are the things to consider. And most of the things with diet sustainability, finding what works for you, is really about trying different things to see what sticks.
So there was a term that was created in the fitness and nutrition industry not that long ago, flexible dieting. And what is flexible dieting? I've worked with many clients who've achieved successful and sustainable fat loss using a variety of different approaches. But the key feature to any one approach for that individual is that there was flexibility to it. So for some, it was eating 5 small meals a day. For others, it's 2 big meals. For some, it's that Sunday meal prep, whereas others are like Suzanne. It's all about on-the-go eating. Some love to eat meat. Others are vegetarians. Some love their breakfast, while others are intermittent fasters. And some, if you're like me, tend to be a bit more of a weekend warrior, and I eat many more calories on the weekend than I do during the week. With a flexible diet, it all comes down to A, determining your calorie intake, and B, determining your protein intake, as we alluded to in a previous slide. And then from there, eating and combining foods that you love, as well as foods that are a little bit more indulgent. So foods that you love, but also to the healthy foods that you like, and coming up with a diet that is flexible to you, that meets those numbers, and that really doesn't cut out any foods. Avoid food avoidance. So long as you're meeting your numbers, then you are good. Create a diet that is flexible for you based on your preferences and your food choices while hitting your target and hitting your numbers. So again, flexible dieting is about creating a diet unique to each individual. And so for Suzanne and I, that looks different in different ways. For me, people often assume, oh, Jake, you're a trainer, you must eat super clean, and we have to have vegetables around because that's probably all you have, and protein and things like that. But that's not the case. I love to eat pizza, and I love to go out for beers with my friends, pre-pandemic, obviously. And I have been to McDonald's at 2 a.m. after a great night out. This is because A, I'm human, but B, I also understand that I can achieve my goals through fitness and nutrition while being flexible with my diet. And in the past few years, I've really experimented with myself, with my own body, to try and get a better understanding of what flexible dieting is and how to reach my goals so that I can pass that along to clients. And I've fluctuated my weight up and down over 25 pounds in those 3 years, losing and gaining and losing and gaining. And right now I'm gaining and I'll go back to losing. But with that, a couple things really rang true for me and my diet. And one, in order to achieve my goals, tracking was really key. And that went for weight loss, and that also went for weight gain, purposeful weight gain. The other thing is, as I mentioned, I like to eat far more on weekends. In order to hit my daily protein goal, which is about 150 grams a day, I like to split my meals up based on my protein intake. So my first meal, 30 to 40 grams, second meal, 30 to 40 grams, third meal or snack would be 20 to 30 grams. And then that last meal is where I'll have anywhere from 40 to 60 or more grams. And with that, I tend to eat most of my calories later on in the day. So about 50 to 70% of my calories, I still haven't had dinner yet. So 50% of my calories or more will come later on in the day. And the other thing too is, regardless of what phase I was in and what I was looking to achieve, slower is always better. I've built muscle, I've become leaner, and I've done all of it without being ultra restrictive, enjoying things like pizza, fuzzy peaches, chocolate, wine, beer, etc., you name it. And that's all thanks to the understanding of flexible dieting.
So for me, what I really love most about flexible dieting is that it's honestly allowed me to be more kind to myself and to ditch a lot of the guilt. And let's be honest, as women, as moms, as professional, life, we're riddled with guilt. We feel guilty over a lot of things. And, when I've tried many different ways to lose weight in the past, and most of them came with associated guilt. They affected my relationship with food. It's very rare that you can find a nutrition, lifestyle, diet, whatever you want to call it, that doesn't label certain foods as bad or make you feel guilt when you eat them. And what I love about flexible dieting is it takes away any concept of bad food. There is no good food or bad food. Obviously, there are foods that should be chosen more frequently because they're full of wonderful things, like lots of micronutrients as well as the macronutrients, high in fiber, healthy foods. Don't get me wrong, they should be unprocessed, healthy fruit and veg. All of those things should fill our diet for lots of different health reasons. But with flexible dieting, like I said, there is no food or food group that is bad. And what really hit home for me once, and Jake has heard me tell this story numerous times, I was actually working with a trainer. This is when I was living in Australia and I was getting ready for my wedding. And as we do, we put ourselves on these crazy, weight loss diets and fitness regimes, trying to look our best for our wedding day. And that particular trainer had convinced me that carbs were terrible. Even though with my background, I knew better, I still believed her. And I remember one day I was leaving my medical school lecture and I was starving. I was just starving in the car. And there was an apple sitting on the passenger seat beside me. And I sat there and was trying to convince myself not to eat the apple because the apple was full of carbs, and, wait till I got home so I could eat my can of tuna. And, and in the end, I ate the apple. And as I was eating the apple, I actually felt guilty. I felt bad about eating an apple. It's so crazy to me. And that's what made me realize, okay, this is wrong. Her teachings, her concepts of carbs being terrible, better, Suzanne. I actually fired her the next day and, started to rework my relationship with food and with this whole concept. And the thing with flexible dieting, like I said, there is no right or wrong food. There is no good or bad food. Each food comes with choice. It comes with a calorie amount and it comes with a protein amount. And you have to make those choices to fit your targets, both your calorie and your protein targets. But no food is terrible. If I choose to eat that donut today at break because I'm having a rough morning and that donut's going to make me happy, I'm going to eat the donut and it's going to be okay because I can make it work into my calories and I can make it work into my budget. And as soon as the guilt component was gone, my whole weight loss journey was so much easier because I just enjoyed it more. And really what flexible dieting, it's allowed me to accept that I can enjoy my life and still lose weight, still make progress, because my life no longer revolves around my diet, but my diet now fits into my life. And that was really the game changer for me when it came to flexible dieting. So obviously, you know, with all of you amazing women, we wanted to also talk about nutrition in the context of breast cancer. And, you know, when it comes to the evidence, it's much like the evidence when it comes to fat loss, that really there is no one specific diet that has been proven to be more beneficial than the next for reducing the risk of breast cancer recurrence. And, you know, you can see there was actually a very well done study that actually compared Western style diets. So those diets that were high in processed grains, processed meats, and red meat. And they compared them to the prudent diets, which is high in fruit and vegetables, whole grains, lean meat. And they actually showed that both diets have similar rates of breast cancer recurrence. Now, I'm not saying go to town and eat the more processed things or anything like that. Again, there's going to be health benefits outside of weight loss. But when it comes to breast cancer recurrence, there was actually no difference between the two. And really, the take-home message really is more about finding a sustainable diet that allows you to manage your weight. So try to avoid weight gain, because really that is what's going to make the biggest difference when it comes to breast cancer recurrence rates and survival rates. Now, I did want to make comment, because I'm sure many of you, I have no doubt you've read lots around this and been given wonderful advice from your oncologists and things. There is some evidence suggesting, and it's preliminary evidence, I would say, suggesting that diets low in dietary fat, particularly fat that comes from dairy products, may lower the incidence of breast cancer recurrence. And this was actually, there was a study done, it was called the Women's Intervention Nutrition Study, and it took 2,400 postmenopausal breast cancer patients and divvied them up into two groups. One was put on a low-fat diet and the other one was put in a control group. And they actually did show that the incidence of recurrence was significantly lower in the low-fat group. But the limitation to this is we don't know whether or not the decreased risk of recurrence was associated with the weight loss in that group, because the low-fat group actually lost on average about 6 kilograms, or sorry, I should say 6 pounds versus the control group. So it's unclear right now to say whether the improvement or the decrease in breast cancer recurrence was actually from the weight loss or strictly from the low-fat diet. So again, there is some possible evidence, but I would not say it's conclusive as of yet. I also just wanted to, while we were talking about nutrition, talk about soy products as well, because this is one I hear a lot of from my own patients, and I know you read it and see it a lot, that there's a lot of misconception that soy products should be avoided, you know, to decrease your risk of breast recurrence. And that's simply because soy products contain phytoestrogens. And obviously, if you have hormone sensitive breast cancer, that, you know, the thought is that they could drive these cancers. And it's actually been proven quite concretely that that's not the case. And if anything, there are some studies showing that, in fact, diets high in soy products could actually decrease your rate of breast cancer recurrence. So again, just wanted to touch on some things particular to this group of women in particular. But again, the key take-home message really is, it's not about what diet you eat, it's more about finding a diet that allows you to maintain your weight as best as possible. So find a diet that you love and enjoy.
So with that, we're going to jump into fitness. And with fitness, what about exercise, or what type of exercise per se? And with that, there's a lot of different products. Fitness, the industry has blown up in the past 10 years, I would say, with boutique style fitness. You have your traditional cardio, you have powerlifting gyms, things like CrossFit. And what we want to do for you is talk a little bit about some of the different modalities, but also to help you to understand that, much like your diet, it really comes down to finding that flexible but sustainable solution that really helps to enhance your life.
So it's been a really common belief that to lose weight, we really have to focus on aerobic activities, exercises, aerobic activities, or cardio. So, you know, if you walk into a gym, a commercial gym after New Year's, you'll find that the cardio machines are full of people who are trying to lose weight, where the weight section is full of the people trying to bulk up. The need to focus on aerobic activities to lose weight has been a huge misconception for the general public, but especially by women, really for decades. And numerous studies have actually, been done now to prove that one is actually not better than the other when it comes to weight loss. So as long as you're burning the same amount of calories, it doesn't matter whether you do cardio or strength training when it comes to weight loss. But however, when it comes to fat loss and muscle preservation, strength training really is what takes the cake. It's what is superior. And really, that's what we're all aiming for. We're aiming to, when we talk about weight loss, we are aiming for fat loss. What we want to do is lose the fat, but keep our muscle. So one of my favorite studies showing the benefits of strength training was actually done by Briner and his team. And they compared strength training or resistance training to aerobic training, changes on lean body mass and basal metabolic rate, so on your metabolism. So for a period of 12 weeks, they took participants and divided them into two groups. One study group did strictly strength training, resistance-based workouts, while the other did endurance training or aerobic workouts. They were both put on the same calorically restricted diet. So they were both given the same number of calories to take in while they did their respective exercise programs. At the end of the 12 weeks, the resistance trained group lost on average 2 kilograms more body fat and lost no muscle and preserved their metabolism. So lost more fat, kept their muscle, and preserved their metabolism. The patients in the aerobic group or the cardio group lost less body fat, but more importantly, they actually lost up to 4 kilograms of their muscle, which then resulted in them dropping their basal metabolic rate by 13.5%. So really substantial. It's why we feel that it's extremely important for women to understand the importance of strength training as part of their fat loss regime, as it's extremely important to preserve our metabolism and our muscle mass as we lose the weight. And it's even more so important as we get older and come towards menopause. So in our perimenopause or menopause stages. So why is this? What happens in menopause? Well, as our estrogen levels drop, we also see a decline in our basal metabolic rate. To add insult to injury, estrogen also controls lipolysis, which is a fancy word for the breakdown of fat. So when your ovaries stop releasing estrogen, it results in an increase in adipose tissue, so an increase in fat tissue, and that fat is predisposed to your abdominal area or your what we call visceral fat. So to put it simply, menopause means that you have a smaller daily caloric budget because your metabolism is slowed down. And when you overeat or overspend that budget, the fat will go directly to your midsection. So again, it's just hitting home the point that particularly as we go through menopause. And when we talk about menopause, again, and with this group in particular, this could be natural menopause that we hit, naturally as we age. It could be surgical menopause. So if you had your ovaries removed for any reason, it could be medical menopause, because many of the medications that are required actually block our estrogen. All of these will result in similar, because our estrogen has been cut off, will result in similar effects. So again, it just hits the message home how important it is for us to maintain our muscle mass as we lose the weight. So strength training really is what we focus on when it comes to our fitness plan for effective fat loss. And really, in addition to preserving our metabolism, strength training has a whole host of benefits. Including all of these that you see listed here, increased bone mineral density, increased strength and flexibility, increased function as we get older, which means decreased falls risks. And all of those are just to name a few. I mean, the host of benefits from actual strength training they're immeasurable.
And one of the common deterrents that I often hear when it comes to strength training in women is the fear of getting bulky. And the reality is you cannot and will not get bulky so long as you maintain a calorie deficit and match your nutrition intake to what you are doing with your exercise. And this photo here is from a client that I worked with over the course of, we worked with over the course of, it was a year. And she had these same fears. And I said, you have nothing to worry about so long as we monitor and track your nutrition intake properly. And with that, she was going to the gym. She was working out 4 or 5 days a week, doing strength training and getting stronger, a lot stronger, which was pretty cool. And also too, doing some sporting activities on the side, and she was ecstatic with your results. The concern with bulkiness typically comes in two scenarios. One, women who have seen a picture or perhaps know someone who has got a physique that is muscular, a female who has a physique that is muscular, and they're afraid and they don't want to look like that. And that's totally okay. You don't have to look like that. You won't look like that, but chances are whoever this person is likely trained really hard and wants to look that way for a particular reason. Building muscle, especially in women, given hormones, does not happen overnight, and nor does getting bulky. So long as you monitor that calorie intake, you'll be just fine. And the other concern is with women who say to me, well, I have a friend who tried this training program or started lifting heavier weights, and that friend got bulky. And which I say to them, okay, that could have happened, but it's likely that whichever program your friend was on, whatever she was doing, again, she was not monitoring her intake. In order for muscle to grow, you need a combination of nutrition, resistance exercise, anabolic hormones, and most of all, time. It's a really long-term, tedious process, and it doesn't happen overnight. And if you ever find that you're getting to a point where you're happy with your muscle mass, then you can always change up your training routine.
So the next common myth is really about high intensity interval training being the magic bullet for weight loss. And you'll hear the expression HIIT out there as a popular buzzword in the fitness world. It's a form of high intensity exercise where you give it 100% effort for intervals of time, followed by short recovery periods of rest. The alternative to HIIT is what we call steady state endurance training. It involves low or moderate level intensity. So things like going for a walk, a light jog, cycle, things like that, where your intensity is maintained over a steady state for a longer period of time. You hear a lot of gym franchises now have adopted the high intensity interval training and are marketing it as the optimal way to lose weight. Well, despite what they claim, the actual scientific evidence shows that there actually is no benefit to high intensity interval training. There have been multiple studies that have compared the two forms of exercise, so your HIIT versus your steady state endurance, and they found that the interval training offered no reliable advantage over the steady state endurance training for fat loss. When the energy expenditure was equal, they are both equally effective. So when you burn the same, as long as you're burning the same amount of calories, they are both equally effective. And again, this should not surprise us now that we know that when it comes to fat loss, it's just about the calories in versus the calories out. So obviously the high intensity interval training has the benefit where that you burn more calories in a shorter period of time. So it may take less time to burn those 250 calories than in a steady state lower, more moderate intensity exercise. But often the HIIT exercises can often be a lot harder on the body itself, can be harder on the joints, and some people just can't tolerate it. The lower intensity, steady state, so going for that walk, going for that run, jog, whatever that may look like, the swim, it may take longer to burn those 250 calories, but as long as you burn the same amount, it does not matter. So again, the science is telling us to do what feels right for us, what we enjoy, what we love, what feels good on our body, and what we can sustain long-term. It really is less about what the exercise is, and more about the calories that are being burned. So again, a really common myth is that we hear often is that fasted cardio will lead to increased fat burn. And again, going back to that same trainer who convinced me my apple was terrible, she had also convinced me that fasted cardio, doing your workouts on an empty stomach was really the ideal way. And she'd almost convinced me to the point where if I didn't get my workout in first thing in the morning fasted, I almost felt like there was no point in working out. Well, this theory has been well adopted and unfortunately still exists out there. And it was all based on a study done that looked at your fat burn directly after fasted versus non-fasted exercise. So there was a study that basically put two groups of participants. One was fasted, one was not fasted, put them through a set of exercises, and then studied the amount of fat burn for a few hours after that exercise. And in that study, they did show if you were fasted at the time of your workout, you actually did burn more fat during the workout and a few hours after. What the study didn't do was go on to show what the body did, later on in the day. And since then, there's been numerous studies, lots of great ones, that have actually looked at the fat oxidation or the fat burn over the full 24 hours. And it actually shows that if you get up and you work out fasted, that you will burn more fat during the workout and right after, but later in the day, you actually burn less. So if you get up and you work out on, after having eaten or had something to drink, you may burn less during the workout, but more later on. Over the overall 24-hour span, the fat burn works out to the same. So there is no benefit to one or the other. So again, this is what I love about science. It's telling us to do what feels great. If you find waking up and working out on an empty stomach is what works best for you, go for it. That's great. If you find getting up and having something to eat or drink means you can, feel better during your workout, maybe lift a little heavier or push yourself a little harder, that's perfectly okay too. One does not have any advantage over the other. It's what feels right for you and your body.
And the next myth that I want to touch on is you don't have to be sore all the time to make progress. You don't have to train like a crazy mad person in order to make progress. And this myth particularly hits home with me because when I first got my start in the fitness industry, which when I was 15 years old, right before that fitness boom had hit, I was working at a studio where we didn't have a lot of educated people in the health and fitness realm. And the philosophy that came from the head trainers was harder, not smarter. And this approach typically only leads to, can lead to discouragement, but oftentimes too leads to injury. And ultimately, injury is really going to hold you back from reaching your goals. You do not need to be excruciatingly sore. You certainly do not need to feel pukey from your workouts. And you also too do not need to spend hours of cardio in order to achieve fat loss. The goal with any client that we work with is to get them to achieve the results that they want to achieve using the smartest and also to the least amount of workouts possible. So with smart training, you're going to save your joints, and also too, you're going to save time, and it's going to make the program more realistic and enjoyable. The key to maintaining consistent progress, sustainable progress as you are working out and exercising is to mix in mild dose of compound exercises. So you want to focus on your squats, your deadlifts, your lunges, push, pull, and assistance work. On top of that, you want to choose a training program that aligns with your goals. If you have certain areas that you want to target more, then you can train those a little bit more often. You want to progressively build strength over time. And Suzanne and I currently work with almost 700 different people in our online training programs. And one of the coolest things is that no matter where anyone is starting from, there is something for them. And our goal is to take where they're at, that foundation, and then to sort of build on top of that. And progressive strength over time is ultimately what's going to do that, regardless of what level you're at. So it's not about jumping a bunch of different leaps and bounds. It's about steady building over time. And then you also too want to add a little bit of variety to your routine, which is one of the things that I pride myself on. We've been working with clients online for 3+ years. Some of our clients have done over 800 workouts, and they still find the new workouts really, really fun. And this will prevent boredom, but also too plateaus. And the last thing is keep it fun and really keep it simple. It doesn't have to be anything overly complicated or overly complex. So with that, we have our training recipe is, in terms of resistance exercise, 3 times minimum in order to achieve that progressive strength. 5 times is kind of the maximum because with that, you can run into overuse injuries. And then from there, you want to mix in sports, cardio training for your heart, if it's something you enjoy doing, and also to mobility, particularly if you've gone through any types of surgeries or things like that where you find you're restricted. You want to work on those things to try and regain as much range of motion as possible, because ultimately, the more range of motion joints tend to have, the more range of motion and control, the healthier they're going to be long term. And then with that, getting outside, as we've probably learned this year more so than any, is extremely important for not only our body, but our mind. So it's a combination of these things and coming up with that unique solution that works for you that will ultimately achieve the results that you want to achieve.
You know, when it comes to exercise and breast cancer in particular, so I am a huge, huge proponent of exercise for all of my patients. In fact, I don't think there is one disease process or illness that does not respond and that where exercise does not play a critical role, but none more so than for breast cancer. Studies have shown, and again, this is quite consistent now, that it can actually, regular physical activity can actually reduce the risk of breast cancer recurrence by upwards to 40%. It's very, very significant. And I know most of the local oncologists that I work with, you know, they don't send their patients home without actually a written prescription for exercise. And really, if you look at the studies, they show that ideally 150 minutes a week is recommended. But the studies have also shown only about 13% of breast cancer patients actually are able to achieve this. And not only does exercise and physical activity help with, you know, decrease your breast cancer recurrence and your survival rates, but can also be any level of exercise, no matter how moderate or mild during your treatment, can actually really help manage the symptoms that can come along with the breast cancer treatment, including fatigue, mood issues like anxiety, depression, which is very common, poor sleep, your lymphedema, overall bone health. All of these things can be better managed with exercise. So again, I mean, obviously this is what Jake and I do. We try to encourage this in all of our patients and our clients, I should say, when it comes to weight loss, but particularly, you know, with you as breast cancer warriors and as breast cancer fighters, it really is so important. Out of everything that you could do lifestyle wise, increasing the amount of physical activity you have is really what will make the biggest difference. So lastly, we want to talk about mindset. So obviously, when it comes to weight loss, or what we like to refer to as fat loss, it really does come down to a good nutrition plan, one that you can sustain long-term, a good fitness plan that really focuses on strength training and keeping your muscle mass up. But most important, it comes with coming with a really healthy, balanced mindset. And this is often the hardest part for most of us to fix, because weight loss in and of itself generally has given us experiences in the past that have really thrown off our mindset. And I would have to say that after years of coaching patients and clients to make health and lifestyle changes, I would have to say that the all or nothing mentality is the number one obstacle that holds most people back and is the biggest detriment to their success. So I just want to put something out there and see if this sounds familiar to any of you. So you join a new program, you know, you pay the money, you set a start date, and you commit to go all in. You tell yourself that perfection is needed for you to reach your goals. And so nothing less than perfection is going to be acceptable. You tell yourself you're not going to miss a workout this time. You're not going to cheat on your diet, because this time you're committed. So then the days, weeks, or even months go by. Kudos if you last that long. And all of a sudden, you know, you realize perfection is impossible. Life gets busy, and you miss a workout, or, you know, the holidays come, so you start to cheat on your diet a little bit. And all of a sudden you feel discouraged. You feel like you've let yourself down. You feel like a failure, because once again, you know, you weren't perfect, which means you let it all go. And you feel like just, this is another attempt like all of the others that failed. And now, you know, I've fallen off the wagon, what to do now? And normally then that comes with a lot of, you know, discouragement, and we really talk ourselves down, because once again, we've let ourselves down. Well, really, what we like to try to encourage among the clients that we work with is to sort of reset this mindset altogether. So when we talk about our wagon, we actually have a wagon that you do not fall off of. Okay, this wagon, this weight loss wagon, you literally cannot. The walls are so high, you cannot fall off of it. The choices that you make will simply change the speed at which it travels. You are always going to be on this wagon, but obviously, depending on what is going on in your life, the wagon's either going to be moving faster towards your goal or slower. So let's say you have a good week, you get all your workouts in, you eat really well, you stick to your calorie targets and things are going well. Well, you sped the wagon up. Let's say all of a sudden, there's a wrench thrown in your plan. One of your kids gets sick. You're trying to manage them at home and work, and life is crazy. So all of a sudden, you can't stick to your diet, or you don't get the workout in, and you have an off week. Well, that's okay. You haven't fallen off the wagon. You simply slowed the wagon down. And what I like about this analogy is that it keeps you in control. And every choice you make simply speeds the wagon up or slows it down. And you all of a sudden are no longer thinking of this all or nothing. If you have a bad day, let's say you end up having pizza with your coworkers at lunch, you're no longer throwing the whole day out and thinking, I've screwed it up now, it's all gone. You simply slowed the wagon down over lunch. And then that night at dinner, you can go home, make different choices and speed it back up again. You are in control of the wagon at all times. You are never off of it. It never stops moving in the direction. You will simply change the speed at which it travels. And I really think this is especially important in any cancer survivor in particular, or anyone who's experienced cancer, because the one thing that we find with patients who have had cancer, it's the feeling of lack of control that can be so difficult. You get this diagnosis and all of a sudden you don't feel like you're in control of your body, and you go through all of these treatments and you feel like the control has been taken away from you. Well, this new mindset of you being in control of the wagon is what's going to give you your power back. And that in and of itself can be so life-changing and such a game changer when it comes to your overall weight loss journey. And it's really what we try to encourage. We need to get rid of the all or nothing. We need to stop looking for perfection and just focus on progress. If every day we're progressing and making the changes slow but sure in the direction that we want to go, that is what we're aiming for. We need to get rid of the idea of perfection. And I promise you, as soon as you start to rework your mindset, as soon as you start to accept that you're in this wagon, you're in it to stay, and you're just going to, take control of how fast it travels, I promise you, your weight loss journey will be so much more successful and so much more enjoyable.
And so with that, one of the best things you can do in order to ditch that all or nothing mindset is to focus again on the things that you can control. And one of the teachings I learned from the precision nutrition certification that I took was setting behavior goals and outcome goals, and when to do either or. And an outcome goal is an outcome that you want to see. Let's say something like losing 10 pounds. A behavior goal is those behaviors that will get you to that outcome goal. And those behaviors are really what you can control. Your 10 pounds is not going to be, somewhat of it is in your control, but it's more so based on your behaviors. And focusing on your behavior goals and ultimately achieving them is going to help you to feel great. It's going to help you to build confidence, and it's going to work your way towards that end result that you want to see. And with outcome goals, the biggest thing is just to never set a timeline. This is one of the worst burdens I've seen clients place on themselves. I need to lose X amount of weight by X amount of day. And if they don't get there, it often leads to anger, frustration, discouragement, and typically abandonment of some of the great healthy habits that they were creating. And I've had numerous clients say to me, as soon as I stopped focusing on the number on the scale and started focusing on behaviors and started focusing on my health, that's when I started to see the results that I wanted to see, and ultimately started to really feel great. The other thing that we talk about in our groups quite a bit is the importance of non-scale victories. And this has really become a reoccurring theme that we bring up often, and we can't stress the importance enough. So often we encounter women who are frustrated with their fat loss and their fitness efforts because they solely focus on one thing, to which we respond, well, what about all the rest? The fact that your clothes fit better, the fact that you have more energy throughout the day, you're setting an amazing example for your kids, you're becoming stronger, you're becoming more confident, your heart is healthier, your bones are denser, you smile more often. These are all non-scale victories, which again, really help to help with buy-in to that long-term mindset, ditching that all or nothing mentality and staying focused on the path that you're on to achieving the goals that you want to achieve and creating a lifestyle that is sustainable for you. And so we're going to finish off with wrapping all of these three things together, which is what we do in our programs. The optimal recipe for successful weight management and health really comes down to combining nutrition with non-restrictive diets that are flexible, that allow you to meet your numbers and meet your goals while still eating the foods that you love and enjoy, with exercise, coming up with that ideal recipe for yourself, a mixture of some resistance training and building progressive strength, along with either playing sports or cardio, mobility, combining those things, and then obviously too going out because it's healthy for your body and to your mind. And then having that long-term mindset in your nutrition and your exercise approach, ditching the all or nothing mentality, giving yourself some grace, will get you to exactly where it is that you want to be in time. And so with that, I'm going to stop my screen share, and that concludes the presentation portion. And if you guys have any questions, we'll be more than happy to answer them.
I think there's something down in the chat there.
Let me see.
Control
Well,
it.
that was a question I had for my panelists. I was wondering if, Suzanne, you can talk a bit about, let's see, can you talk a bit about where we can get proteins from other than red meats, for example, or if we're vegetarian, what you would recommend?
Sure, yeah, definitely. Protein can come from all sorts of different sources. It doesn't have to come from meat sources. Obviously, meat sources give you higher levels of protein in more calorically dense ways, but that's not to say it's necessary. So great options are, for instance, edamame beans. They're a perfect example. It's what a lot of our clients go to. One serving has 14 grams of protein, so the equivalent of 2 eggs, which is amazing. Anyone who, obviously eggs, if you are will eat in that sort of food source, are a great option. Dairy products are, and obviously in the context of what I was saying, you would definitely want to choose the lower fat dairy products, in my opinion, based on the early evidence that there's out there. Chickpeas, lentils, all of those things have great sources of protein as well. I don't want to say unfortunately, but they do tend to come with more calories. It's harder to hit the same calorie targets while eating those because they're basically more calorically dense. But those were the different things that I would recommend. When it comes to, if your primary goal is weight loss, what we often say with vegetarians who are struggling to meet that target that we're recommending, the calories should be your top priority and then the protein second.
I'm going to read a question from our audience. The question is, how do you get your mindset to be where you want it to be and stay there in order to even lose weight, let alone keep it off?
So again, that's where the mindset that Jake and I like to coach our clients on is really just, it's getting rid of the all or nothing. It's getting rid of any sort of concept to be perfect. So, accepting the fact that there'll be days that you make better choices and days that you'll make less better choices, but as long as, you keep to the plan. So when we name this webinar Ditch Your Diet, it's because we don't see, when it comes to us coaching you on your nutrition plan, there's no beginning or end. We don't see this as we're going to have you eat this way for 12 weeks and then you're going to go back to your old ways. We're going to teach you how to eat long term. And so you can continue to eat that way, and you're going to eat like that for the rest of your life. Obviously, once you've lost the weight and you no longer have to be in a caloric deficit, meaning you are maintaining your weight, you then can eat your calories at your maintenance level, which will be higher, but still the concept of how you eat is the same. You still have a caloric budget, whether it be your weight loss budget or your maintenance budget. And you just learn to fit the foods into that budget accordingly. So, I mean, your question as to how to get your mindset, it's a very slow process. It's not an overnight fix. No really life-changing, significant change in lifestyle factor is an overnight thing. It takes time, but it's just sort of understanding that, you're slowly finding ways to make your diet work for you over time, that you will be able to continue on for the rest of your life. And so there's no on or off to this. It keeps going. And once you get your mindset around that, it's okay if you have a bad day. It's okay if you have a bad week. It's even okay if you have a bad month or months. Like, let's be honest, the pandemic has not been easy on us when it comes to lifestyle factors. A lot of people have moved less and eaten more and gained weight as a result. So again, it's just accepting the fact that it's okay if you had a bad few months or a bad few weeks. You just get back on track. As long as you have the information you need to know what you need to do, you can always get back on track.
And the one thing I'll add to that too, which has proven really successful in the clients that we work with, and Suzanne talked about it in the Pose mnemonic, is support system. So not being in it all by yourself. And that's what we call the secret sauce of our programs, where you're in it together with people who all have a commonality. And in any group that we work with, we have a mom's group specific to moms, a physicians group specific to physicians. There are highs and lows for everyone, the fittest of the fittest and the people who are just getting started. But being able to have others to rely on is super important, and also to having accountability. So you start with that mindset that, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do this. I can do this, because in order to achieve anything, it's going to take some belief in yourself. But then aligning yourself with people who are working towards the same thing can be super, super powerful. And what I often say to clients is, you can have the best nutrition plan and you can have the best training protocol, but if you don't have that support network and that accountability along the way, it's going to make things much, much harder.
Any more questions from our audience? I have one question, and just to get sort of your thoughts on what you would say to this, is that I find in general, I think women tend to put themselves last. They put their families first, their jobs first, and then if they have time at the end of the day, maybe they'll get a workout in, or what would you say to somebody who was thinking about joining the iRise and Shine Wellness Training Program that will launch in the spring, about joining, to convince them that it's a good choice for them to make?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I relate, obviously, completely. I was that person. And I often use the analogy of the oxygen dropping from the airplane, right? What do you do first? You put the oxygen on yourself first, and so that you can provide care to your loved one or your dependent next to you. And that's the same way I feel about finding time for exercise and, in a woman's life, and good nutrition. If we as women don't put ourselves first, we can't be our best version of ourselves for those who need us. So whether it be our children, our spouses, in my case, my patients, your employers, your employees, whatever it is, we have to look after ourselves. And as soon as we sort of accept the fact that by being a better version of ourselves for ourselves, we can be better for everyone around us who we need to care for, it all of a sudden really switches the mindset and makes you, rethink your priorities again. And, it's funny because professionally right now, my life has been very, very taken over to some extent by COVID. And despite all of this, I literally see my personal workout time. And I wasn't always like this. I was like many other women where I was always last. And that's where I ended up 40 pounds heavier than I am now, and just not feeling good about myself. Now that, 45 minutes of exercise, I see it as a non-negotiable me time. And will often have the dialogue in my head. If you don't do this, you're not going to be the same mom that walks in at the end of the day. Like, you need it to de-stress. You need it to feel good about yourself. You need it. And everyone in your life who's depending on you, whether it be your children, your spouse, your employee, employers, whoever that may be, is depending on you to be you. And you deserve that. And they deserve the best form of you. And the only way to do that is to prioritize yourself again. And it's interesting because when Jake and I put together the program for our moms in particular, our working moms group, when we came up with the name, the name we actually came up with was the Moms First Movement. Like, again, moms needing to understand the importance of actually putting themselves first in order to be a better mom and a better, person to everyone who needs them. And again, I think it's just a matter of reworking that inner dialogue with ourselves.
Yeah, and I'll add on that just quickly. When I first started training, got into it, hockey was my passion, working with hockey players, It was great. It was super fun. But where I really found passion was those hockey players would train with me in the summertime, and then they would leave, and there was kind of a empty void. And in those 3 or 4 months that I would work with them, it was all about them and their career and this and that. And when they would leave, that empty void eventually ended up getting filled, where I started training a lot of women, personal training. Initially, it was group classes. You build up a reputation. This is how it kind of works in the training industry. And then you start bringing on personal training clients. A lot of the training clients were women. And even today, probably 90% of the clients that I work with are women. But what I loved about it so much, and why I eventually got out of training hockey clients, was that the things that we were working on and the things that we were focusing on and the results that they were achieving in the gym, they weren't just about the workouts. It was so much about how that affected every other part of their life. And Suzanne alluded to it, where you become a better wife, a better mother, a better friend, because, as I often say, building strength is building confidence, and you build ultimately happiness through that. And with that, these women that I would work with, these results that they would achieve, and I hear this quite often in my day-to-day and week-to-week, is this program has been life-changing. And that for me is the ultimate fulfillment. And that's why I love what I do, is because I know that the impact that we're making through nutrition, through exercise, through mindset, through the groups, goes so far beyond just health and fitness.
Yeah, I mean, I can just say that it's only been, what are we Wednesday? It's only been a week and a half since the pilot started, and I'm so proud of our women. I mean, they're doing so amazing, and I've just got some really great feedback from them that they just feel good and they're feeling motivated, and it's working out much better than they thought it might work out. And to me, that's just a total win. And it's just a testament to the program that the two of you have put together. I'm so happy with it. And I mean, I'm sold on it. I love it. I think it's great. It's fun. And I just going back to something you said in the presentation, cancer, the one thing that cancer does is it's a very eroding experience to go through breast cancer. It really hits at the essence of womanhood, right? And it really affects our self-esteem. And this offers us the opportunity to take control back. And I love that analogy that you made. And it's just, it's a real positive way to start to feel good and sustain it for long term. And I do think it has a ripple effect, and it pours over into every other facet of the woman's life who's taking part in this. So I really want to thank you for all that you're doing.
Well, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to talk to all of you. Honestly, I haven't been this excited to do this presentation ever, I think, before. And we've had an opportunity to present this information to multiple platforms, but this has been a real honor. So thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. Well, I think we're running out of time. Oh, we have a question here. I see we have a couple questions. They wanted to thank you for your time. I don't know if you can see this on your end, Jake, but thank you for your time. And how do we sign up for the program? Oh, well, I have all of the contact information from everybody who signed up for this webinar And I'll certainly provide information to those who've signed up about how to get become part of it in the future. So thank you.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Jillian. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes. Have a wonderful night. Take care, everyone.
Bye.